Okay, I want to just show you two things. Very simple things. There's just no way to understand it, except that this has come from a divine source. We have the theologians poking fun at the scientists. They're so stupid, they think the earth is billions of years old. They don't know God made it in 6 days. And all these theologians, they look at all this stratification of the earth, and they look at all that. They say it's millions and billions of years. Noah's flood. Gosh, if they just opened the Bible, there is Noah's flood. They laid down all the stratas. It's so simple. No, it's not that simple. And the theologians with their simple little fairy tale genie in a bottle theory is not true. And the scientists thinking that all this came about without some superior, intelligent, powerful, almighty, wise source is also not true. But there is an element of truth in both. Theologians accept that there is a God that did create the heavens and the earth. And evolutionists and or most scientists will try to tell you how it came about without intelligence. But the research, much of it is true. I mean, when they go out and they say they found this at this layer of strata, and based on different isotope measurements of different elements that have radiation at a given rate, and this can be measured. This strata here is 800 million years old. 800 million? It can't even be 8,000, according to theologians. Well, is all that scientific jargon gobbledygook? Or do they know a little bit what they're talking about? I mean, it is the scientists, who invent computers and automobiles and rocket ships and pacemakers. These are scientists who do this, not theologians. Most theologians do not invent lasers. Scientists do. So don't you think all scientists are like stupid or something? Why do we use that terminology? Well, you don't need to be a rocket scientist to understand this. Because to be a rocket scientist, you've got to have more formulas and more knowledge about physics and quantum math and just plain engineering and general science and specific science and specialized science than you can shake a stick at. I mean, these men are absolute geniuses. You take a rocket ship that weighs 1 million pounds and you lift it up at 3 miles an hour. Perfectly straight. It doesn't waver. They used to. Remember those early films? They go up, boom. Now they can be huge rockets, big around as this room, bigger. They just lift up at 2-3 miles an hour. They go faster. Straight as an arrow. How do you do that? Well, there's a little science involved there, and it takes more than a child's really big gyroscope. You ever see these kids' gyroscopes? You pull the string and it'll balance on a pin. Well, yeah, a real big one. No, it's a little more to it than that. A little more to it than that. Many scientists, they're just geniuses. You get a PhD in applied physics from MIT. You're in a small category of people. You got to know something. But I'm going to show you two things that the Bible says that science has only discovered in recent years. Let's take a look at them. Moses didn't figure this stuff out. He was not experimenting out on the farm, figured this stuff out, by no means. Now, in Psalm 18:15, we can turn there, we read this. Then the channels of waters were seen, and the foundations of the world were discovered at your rebuke, O Lord, at the blast of the breath of your nostrils. This is figurative language, of course. But let's pay attention to the words anyway. He's likening a real powerful force as being what? A blast from the nostrils of God. A blast. You see the same thing in 2 Samuel 22:16. The blast. Exodus 15:8. And with the blast of the nostrils of the waters were gathered together. The flood stood upright as a heap, and the depths were congealed in the heart of the sea. How? By the blast of God's breath in the nostrils. So God says He uses a blast. Wanting to be a little silly here, but make a point as well. I was thinking the other day, okay, so what's the difference if science says there was a Big Bang, and I say there was a god-awful blast? What's the difference? Can you see a similarity? Scientists now all started with the Big Bang. Could that have been like a god-awful blast? Where did they come up with the Big Bang? Anybody know? How did they come up with the Big Bang?
Speed of the expansion of the universe.
Okay. The universe is expanding. Since you mentioned that, Joe, when did they learn that?
I think they changed it in the early 60s.
They really first began to understand that back in about 60. I mean, I was already full grown. I was out of high school. That's when they really started to understand this. Not 100 years ago, not 200 or 300 years ago, not in the days of Copernicus, not in the days of Galileo. A couple decades ago, they learned this. So where did they come up with the Big Bang, though? What's the correlation? Does everybody understand the difference between a star and a galaxy and the universe? Who doesn't? Be honest. A star is one single body, like our sun. Our sun is a star. A cluster of stars in one given area with a lot of void around it is a galaxy. Most galaxies have about 100 billion stars. We belong to what galaxy? The Milky Way. We belong to the Milky Way galaxy. It has about 100 billion stars. And it's so big, it takes light from one end going at 600 million miles an hour, what is the speed of light? 186,000 miles a second. 186,000 miles a second. That's around the earth 8 times in a second. You could travel in a spaceship going 186,000 miles a second. And it would take you 100,000 years to reach the end of our galaxy. And yet, if you back up in space, our galaxy looks like one star. You've got to get up really close to it and say, there's millions of stars. A little closer. There's billions of stars. And they're millions and hundreds of millions of miles apart. But you back up in space, and you reach a point where our whole galaxy, which is 100,000 light years across, looks like one star. And you back up a little more, can't even see it. Then out there's other Milky Ways. It looks like a star in our Milky Way. It's not a star. It's another galaxy billions of miles away, like Andromeda. That's one of our closest galaxies. So you have one body, like the sun is a star. A whole group cloistered is a galaxy. And all of the galaxies combined is the universe. So they discovered that the stars and the galaxies are flying apart at terrific speed. They learned that through the Doppler theory. When sound or light is approaching you, the frequency is higher. If you're moving away from it, the frequency is lower. And what they found is that these distant stars have a lower frequency, and so they're moving away. So, if the stars are all moving away from each other, then so many years ago they were here. So many thousands of years before that they were here. So many millions of years before, they were there. Before that, they were there. I mean, common sense says if they're going out like this, at one time they were back here. That's the Big Bang. It started at a common origin. That's all it's saying. I mean, it sounds like science fantasy, the Big Bang. Yeah. No, it's just a clever way, by using a colloquial type statement, to show a scientific theory. That if everything's going apart, the further you go back, the closer it was together. And it's only natural that it started at one place. And that's why it's moving apart from where it started. That's the Big Bang. Now, notice this. Psalm 104, verse 2. Speaking of God, who covers thyself with light as with a garment, who stretches out the heavens like a curtain. What? I mean, you read that, it's just kind of poetic talk of King David in the Psalms. Well, it isn't just King David, though. Let's look at Isaiah 40, verse 22. Have you not known? Have you not heard? Verse 21. Has it not been told you from the beginning? Have you not understood from the foundations of the earth? It is He that sits, it says, upon the circle. It should be above. My margin says above. Most modern versions all say above. Who sits above the circle of the earth. How did they know the earth was a circle? Some of the most intelligent scientists in all Great Britain a couple hundred years ago, they thought it was flat. How come the Bible knew it was a circle? Well, that's not my point, though. Who sits up above the circle of the earth, and the inhabitants thereof are as grasshoppers, that stretches out the heavens as a curtain and spreads them out as a tent to dwell in, or under. It's like a great canopy, the heavens. We dwell under this canopy. It's like tent, celestial tent. But it says stretches. It's the indefinite. It's like the Greek aorist tense, which much of King James has it properly. Sometimes it doesn't, though. In key scriptures, a lot of times it doesn't. John 3:16, for God so loved the world. No! It's not what it says in the Greek. He didn't love the world once, and now He doesn't. It's in the Greek aorist tense. For God thus loves. He loved then, He's loved all along, He loves now, He will love in the future. It's indefinite. It's the past, present, future tense. God so loves the world. That's the way it should be translated. And everyone, any scholar knows that this is in the indefinite. The Concordant version translates it, who is stretching out. Now, that really puts it in the present. And Young says the same. This verse reaches, who is, present tense, now, is stretching out the heavens. How could they say that? How would anyone know that the heavens are being stretched out? Any logical person, be a godly man or atheist, if he was to consider that somebody did make the heavens, he said, well, up there's a star, somebody made it. Where did He make it? Well, right there where it is. There's stars on the other side of the earth looking the other way. Up there's the moon. Where did He make the moon? Over in Palestine or down in Africa. That's where it is. That's where He made it. Up here's the sun. Well, where did He make the sun? Well, right there where it is. That's where He made the sun. Anybody would see that. That's the only logical conclusion that your brain could ever come to. Wherever it is, if there's a God, that's where He made it. But that's not what the Bible says. The Bible says He is, present tense, He is stretching out the heavens. How could they know that? The best scientists in the world didn't know that until just a couple of years ago. This is amazing stuff. This is mind-boggling stuff. The writers knew that the heavens are moving out. You can't see it. It takes the most sophisticated knowledge and instruments that science could come up with in thousands of years to finally measure that they are moving. Yet Isaiah and King David, they knew it thousands of years ago. It's unbelievable. It's just unbelievable. Now this is very specific. And it's very scientific.